Welcome, welcome. This is G. What is up, everybody? Hope you are all doing well. How has your September been? We are halfway through the month and we are coming up on a full moon. This full moon, I'm not sure exactly what it's gonna be. We can look at the sign, we can look at the degrees, and so we'll be able to look at some of the keywords. There's something about it that has like a sense of new and fresh and maybe exciting, maybe some adventure, but definitely a powerful individualistic feeling to it. That much I know. Plus, what about that it is the final, the final full moon. I'm sorry, the final supermoon. Final supermoon of 2023. Let's take a look. Bam. And there it is. The star of the show, the full moon. It's September 29th. Did your eye catch it? Did you see the moon front and center? There it is. There's the moon. It's 6 degrees Aries. 6 degrees Aries. Yeah, I was going to color it in red, but then I kind of thought, well, many times we associate red as hot and fiery, and well, that's Aries, hot and fiery. The degrees, 6 degrees exactly. So right off the top, you know that means the sun is at the opposite. And if you know your signs, what's the opposite of Aries? Right? What's at the opposite of Aries? Let's spin around and find out. In case you don't know, you're going to find out real quick here. Takes us to Libra. That's right. And there it is. Look at that. The sun is exactly at 6 degrees. So let's pull back a little bit so we get the big picture. So we can get the big picture. This is our opposition. The sun and the moon. That's what a full moon is. The opposition of the sun and the moon. There it is. Bam. So a full moon is all about the ending of a cycle, the completion, a closure, a release. Because we finished it. We're at the end of the book. I read the last page. I close it. I'm done. And what do you do when you finish a good book? Do you put it on the shelf? Sure. You might put it on the shelf and like never look at it again. So it's over. Or you might put it on the shelf and pull it out 15 years later. Or you may call somebody or text somebody and be like, hey, I just finished this. Do you want to read it? Right? There was that one book that was traveling all around. Somebody finished reading it. And it was like everybody I talked to, not that I was looking for a book to read, but I was recommended, and 2 people offered to send me the same book. And I never said, hey, I want to read that. I didn't show any interest at all. And they were just like so impressed with the book. They were like, do you want to read it? I'll send it to you. My point is they were willing to release it. They had finished it and then they were going to release it. They were going to give it away. They were going to let go of it. Right? So it's kind of just my quick example of a very simplified version of what a full moon can mean. Now, we have to take into consideration the sign that the full moon happens in, and it's in the sign of Aries. So we got to think about the Aries keywords. So we know Mars rules the planet. I'm sorry, Mars is the planet that rules the sign of Aries. Yeah, we're still dealing with Mercury while I'm recording all this. I'm still anyway, we're all in the Mercury stuff still in Virgo. So you might hear some of my stuff backwards sometimes. Anyway, hang in there with me. We'll get through it. My physical body, that's Mars, your body. And it's the actions of your body, the actions of your body. And it's not just the actions of your body, but the independent actions of your body. Independent. It's like, hey, I want to go here. I want to go here. I want to go over there. But I'm thinking of going down there. Oh, hold on a minute. This is for my mom. We got to pause. Okie dokie. So Aries energy and wanting to go in different places, wanting to do different things with its body, Mars. It's all about this is my body and the actions the independent actions that I take with my body. Aries is ferocious about its freedoms. Ferocious. It will fight for its freedoms. All right. So now there's some sort of an ending here. Some sort of an ending. Aries, other than being the freedoms of my body, we think of that Mars energy and how it can kind of be like a rocket.
10,
It kind of just think of a rocket fuel energy, right?
6,
It's to get it off
4,
the ground,
3,
right? And once
2,
it gets up into
1,
space, because it really,
and booster ignition
big time
and
is a
liftoff.
rocket.
Space shuttle
Once it
Discovery,
gets up into
taking the space
space,
station to full
it
power
kind
for
of
full
drops
science.
off those extra, what do they call them? Like the lifters or they're like almost like these extra fire things that they drop off because they're really, they're the boosters, right? They're the boosters. And that's Mars. Mars is the boosters on the rocket. So you got a rocket going up. That's my big, tall, vertical arrow. But that rocket isn't necessarily Mars. The boosters themselves, that's Mars. Mars is the boosters on the rocket. It gives them that momentary burst of energy for liftoff. And once it gets up to the height and to the location it needs to be at and the altitude, they get rid of the lifters. They literally dump them. And that's what happens with Mars energy in our body. Have you ever noticed times where you have like you'll get like a massive burst of energy and you're like, wow, I love this. This is great. And then it'll suddenly be gone. And you'll be like, what happened? All of a sudden, that burst that I had, why can't I feel like that all the time? Now, granted, some of you, depending upon how your Mars is in your chart and your Aries energy, it may be very strongly and well placed so that you never feel the boosters leaving you. But for some folks, they'll tell you stories. They can tell you moments. They can tell you episodes that they go through. It may be daily where they may have that energy and all of a sudden it's as though someone took the boosters off of them and the boosters just disappeared and they no longer had them. And that's Mars. And the whole point and the whole demonstration about all that was to say it's sporadic bursts of energy. It's not steady because it's super powerful. It's really not meant to be long term. I kind of also look at the Mars energy as, when the soldiers go and fight, they go in for a certain amount of time on the front line. They're not supposed to stay there for a lengthy space of time. They're supposed to be, what do they call it? What's that word they use? I can't remember what it is. And so somebody tell me if you know, but we'll call it their fight time. Fight time on the line is X amount of time. We'll say it's 6 months, right? And so you're there for 6 months, but then you come off after the 6 months period because it's inhumane to expect someone to fight on that level, to work on that level, to be in that extreme environment beyond a certain amount of time. Well, to me, 6 months is insane, but whatever that is, again, I don't know. This was just as an example. And that's your Mars energy. That's Aries energy. We really all of us have to remember to use our Aryan energy more like a tool. It is not to be used all the time. It's more like the fight or flight thing. You've got it there to use it when you need it, right? Because it's not meant to use for a long term. Mars really is a tool. Okay. And if you use it strategically, it can be beneficial for you, right? You know when to use it and when to put it back in the box. Okay. So now this is a release, and Mars, along with its ability to fight, it has some other virtues and vices, like all signs do. And so some of the virtues and vices with Mars, that ability to fight, that ability to start, to lead the pack, to be out front, to want to be first. Great at racing, race car drivers, runners, sprinters, really good for that energy. Okay. Also fighters and boxers, right? But there's more something about the speed factor too, and being out front, right? Some of the other beautiful things is optimism, fiery, optimistic, innocence, right? Has a little bit of some childlike qualities, but sometimes that can be very fun and play like, can be very beautiful in that way. Absolutely. Very inspirational, right? Can inspire other people. If it leads in the way where it's harm none, let it be done, it can be really, really a great humanitarian energy. It can look out for the group even, right? It can aspire to be that spiritual fighter, that spiritual leader even. Now, some of the vices could be some of the things where it can be very impatient, right? And the ego energy is strong with Aries. Ego is really strong because think of us when we're young, right? Think of when we're youngsters and our egoic ways, right? Our ego tendencies. And we tend to be very focused on me, focused on self. It's not the we energy at all. Aries is really more about me. It's me, baby. Like, hey, I understand that's what you want, but this is me that we're talking about here. This is what I want. That's Aries. So when we think of a full moon and what could be released, right? Some would say, oh my God, if you want a fear video, then we can go down that path and we could say, oh, but you're going to lose some freedoms. That's a possibility. You could also lose some of your egoic ways. You could also lose some of your impatient. We could also lose some of the, maybe we're going to take away some of that fight mentality. Maybe we're not going to be so fiery and be all about war. Is that a possibility? The thing is, the degree matters. The degree matters. 6 degrees in your chart is what we're looking at. Aries energy at 6 degrees. What house is it in? What house? For example, in this chart, it's in house number 12. You see that? House number 12. So if it's house number 12, this absolutely would be, there might be this 12th house is your subconscious. It's the sleep, it's the dreams, it's the fantasy. And so if you have Aries in your 12th, there is likely many things about your ego, your fiery self, your impatient ways, where you're more about me and not about the we energy. It's subconscious. So others in your life may be very aware of those things about you, but you may not see it because it's hidden from you. 12th house, the hidden. It's the subconscious. It's where we're asleep. It's where we need to develop a sense of awareness. We need to see what others see. See the things about who we are and our personality that for whatever reason, we're still sleeping. We're not aware of that. And it's not about good or bad or wrong or right. It's once we develop a little bit more, we become a little bit more worldly and we deal with more experiences and more people and just having to relate with others is how we really get the mirror put in front of our faces, especially if you've had to deal with your own children. They're great mirrors, right? They shine back to us that which we shine out, whether we're aware of it or not. And so I think of Aries energy big time when it comes to that. Okay. And so the 12th house being the hidden and a release of some sort. For some of you, find out what house, where is your Aries energy? Do you have your chart? That's how you find this out. If you don't, let me know so we can get your chart to you. If you don't have your chart, what are you waiting for? You could have your own chart from a different software, which is fine. But if you're new, and you're confused, like having a chart that matches the charts that I showed may help you. It may help you. And I can guarantee this chart will be accurate. I can guarantee that. Okay. I double and triple check charts before I send them out. I check by coordinates for the location and the time zones, right? Like that is a huge factor in your birth time, right? All that matters. So finding out where's the 6 degrees for this full moon, do a 2-degree orb. So that would put it at 4. We'll place that at 4 to 8 degrees in the sign of Aries, from 4 to 8 degrees in the sign of Aries is the orb that we'll give for this full moon. It's a release, it's a closure, it's an ending. Something about possibly your own independence, possibly something about your ego or your impatience or your childish ways. Your childish ways. Remember, there are things about ourselves, things that we did when we were children. And even though we might be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, there might be some things about the way we are that we just, we still do those things. We still act our actions, Aries, the way we act. Do we stomp our feet when we get angry? Do we have a fit when we get angry? Do we, do we throw a tantrum? Right? These are things that like young children do. But are we still doing them even though we are supposedly older? Right? So there could be some things where we're really self-centered and self-focused and overly self-focused, right? To the degree of narcissistic, right? Kind of qualities. And so if it's a release on some of those negative traits, well, then that would be a good thing, wouldn't it? It would be a wonderful thing. The thing about this is it's not just about the full moon itself. We always have to look at what else is going on in the chart. And I think there's some other interesting things to look at. And yeah, I'm all about the details right now, and I don't want this to be too long. So thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.